when a narcissist's own behavior turns against them. Karma. Have you ever wondered why, after everything you've been through, it feels like the narcissist in your life is still desperately trying to keep their house of cards from collapsing? Even as you've finally started to walk away, that confusion you feel, the sense that you're watching a slow-motion car crash, that they are driving themselves, is not accidental. You are witnessing a profound psychological irony, a moment where the very behaviors they use to construct their world are the same ones now dismantling it. Welcome back. I am so glad you're here. And I want to start by creating a space for you to just breathe. If you've spent months or years living in the turbulence of a narcissistic relationship, your nervous system is likely exhausted. Today, we are going to talk about the concept of karma, but we're going to frame it through the lens of psychology. We aren't looking for revenge. We are looking for an understanding of the internal reality of someone who cannot seem to find peace. We are looking at why their own behavior eventually turns against them, and more importantly, how you can use this understanding to finally find your own freedom. To understand this dynamic, we have to look at the false self. Dr. Ramani Durvasula has spoken extensively about how the narcissist builds this persona, this shiny, impenetrable armor, to protect a deeply wounded, insecure core. This isn't a judgment. It is a clinical observation. Imagine someone who has decided at a very young age that they are not enough. They build this false persona that demands constant admiration, constant control, and constant validation. This is their oxygen. But the tragedy is that they are building their life on a foundation that doesn't actually exist. They are essentially building a castle on a foundation of sand, and they spend every waking moment terrified that someone is going to notice the tide is coming in. When you were in the relationship, you were likely serving as a mirror. You were reflecting back the greatness, the charm, and the brilliance they wanted to believe about themselves. But here is the irony. Because their identity is external, they don't actually know who they are. They are constantly looking at other people to see how they should feel or act. And when you stop being that mirror, when you start to set boundaries, or perhaps when you finally leave, they don't just lose a partner. They lose their primary source of regulation. This leads us to the cycle of their behavior turning against them. Think about the traits we often see: an inability to take responsibility, a need for constant external validation, and a pattern of blaming others for their unhappiness. In the short term, these behaviors work. They blame you and they feel better. They control you and they feel powerful. But over time, these patterns create a psychological prison. Because they never take responsibility for their own mistakes, they never learn from them. They are essentially doomed to repeat the same errors over and over again in every new relationship they enter. This is where the psychological karma comes in. As Dr. David Hawkins noted in his work on the levels of consciousness, there is a reality that we cannot escape. What we put into the world inevitably returns to us because it shapes our own internal state. If a person operates from a place of malice, deception, or control, they are living in a state of chronic stress. Their nervous system is always on, always scanning for threats, always calculating the next move. This is an incredibly taxing way to live. They are never at peace because they are never authentic. They are constantly managing a performance. So, what does this look like for you? When you are on the receiving end of their behavior, it feels chaotic. It feels like a storm. But when you step back, you realize that the narcissist is trapped in their own cycle. They are like a person who is constantly trying to run away from their own shadow. The harder they run, the more they have to perform, the more they have to manipulate, and the more they have to lie to keep the charade going. Eventually, the weight of that performance becomes too heavy to bear. Let's talk about the victim's experience. When you were deep in that dynamic, you likely felt like you were the one losing your mind. You were walking on eggshells, constantly trying to predict their mood swings. You were trying to solve problems that were fundamentally about them, not about you. But here is the shift. You don't have to be the one to solve them anymore. In fact, one of the most empowering things you can do is realize that their behavior is a feedback loop. When they treat someone poorly, that person leaves. When they lie, they create distrust. When they manipulate, they burn bridges. The very tools they use to win are the same tools that ensure they eventually lose. Now, I want to discuss a strategy that many of us find difficult: non-engagement. Darren McGee has often pointed out that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. When you move toward indifference, you are essentially starving the narcissist of the reaction they need. It isn't about being mean or cold. It's about reclaiming your energy. You have likely been donating your time, your emotional labor, and your peace to someone who didn't know how to value it. When you stop that donation, you aren't hurting them. You are simply choosing to invest your resources in the only person who can actually change your life: yourself. I want you to consider the gray rock method. It's an effective way to protect yourself when you still have to have contact. You become as boring and unreactive as a gray rock. When they try to pull you into an argument, you don't defend yourself. When they try to blame you, you don't argue back. You keep your answers short, calm, and neutral. You aren't giving them the juice or the supply they are looking for, because their behavior is driven by the need for a reaction. When you stop providing one, they often look for someone else. This is a powerful form of protection, and it gives you the mental space you need to start your own healing. Healing from this isn't just about moving on. It's about rebuilding your own reality. Many of us come out of these relationships questioning our own judgment. We ask, how did I not see it? Or why did I stay so long? This is a normal part of the process, but don't let it become a trap. You stayed because you are a person with empathy. You stayed because you are a person who values connection and commitment. Those are beautiful traits. The problem wasn't your capacity to love. The problem was that you were trying to use that love on someone who was fundamentally unable to receive it or mirror it back. As you start to move forward, focus on the why of your life. Why do you want to be peaceful? Why do you want to be authentic? When you focus on your own growth, you stop being a character in their story and start being the author of your own. And here is the secret. While they are busy trying to manipulate the world around them, you are busy building a world that is worth living in. That is the ultimate way that their behavior turns against them. They spend their lives trying to tear down others, while you spend your life building something that is real, stable, and resilient. It is so important to remember that you are not responsible for their growth. You are not responsible for their aha moment. If they are going to change, they have to do it for themselves. And honestly, they usually have to hit their own personal bottom before they even consider it. Your responsibility is to yourself. Your responsibility is to your nervous system, your future, and your joy. I know that sometimes, even after we've walked away, we feel the urge to check on them or to see if they've changed. We want to know that justice has been served. But true justice isn't seeing them fail. True justice is seeing you succeed. True justice is reclaiming your life and finding the peace that they were never able to find. That is the most profound outcome of all. If this message has resonated with you today, I want to encourage you to take that first step in your own clarity. Subscribe to this channel so we can continue this journey of understanding and healing together. Like this video if it helped you feel a little more grounded. And please share it with someone else who might be standing in the fog, wondering where to go next. And I would love to hear from you in the comments. What is one boundary you've set recently that has given you more peace? Sharing your story helps others realize that they aren't alone in this experience. Remember, the goal isn't to look back and dwell on the chaos they created. The goal is to look forward and build the life you deserve. One where you are the priority, where your voice matters, and where you are surrounded by people who can actually see you, appreciate you, and walk with you in a healthy, reciprocal way. You have navigated something incredibly difficult, and you are still standing. That in itself is a testament to your strength and your capacity to endure. But you don't have to just endure anymore. You can thrive. You can learn to trust yourself again. You can learn to set boundaries that protect your spirit. And you can learn that your value has never been and will never be determined by someone who couldn't recognize it. Take this time to be kind to yourself. If you're having a hard day, acknowledge it. If you're feeling a little bit lost, talk to someone you trust or write it down. Just keep moving toward the light. You have a whole life ahead of you, and it is going to be defined by your own terms, not by the shadows of your past. Clarity is the first form of freedom. You are not alone.